Sawete Mihinomen est Stella at Hawk S Batgirl, the Oracle of the Barbara Burden podcast, episode 236 for July MMXXIII. Batgirl, the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage backed issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. We're in the summer blockbuster. We had them on for part one, or act one, I guess I should say, and this is act two. We'll have them on, hopefully, fingers crossed, for act three, unless I just become so frustrated I kick them off and don't finish
Oh man,
things. Could you imagine? I call him Josue. Other people call him Joshua Lapin-Bertone. Welcome back.
surprise.
Okay, we're just, we're going to get into this thing. We've kind of done all the pre-gaming, I think, in the previous one. We know the history and everything, and you brought a lot of insider knowledge for Act One, so I think we're just going to continue that. But before we even begin that, do you know what animal this is? It's not a good question. What is this?
Man, so Stella had me watch a video yesterday, and she's like, "I'm gonna have a follow-up question." So I'm thinking, like, whose side are you on, or like, is it possible? Why was he eating this? I did not think it was gonna be like, which animal is this?
Well,
Like, I would have studied.
Well, I've got a follow up, but you just have to answer this question. What's this called?
You said emu at one point about
it's
something.
Not an emu. It's a bird. Okay, this is a capybara. Now, shout out to the mayor of T-Ticket, aka Harry's mom, for sending this to me. But I did send you a video.
Is Harry's mom a mayor?
She's not in her wildest dreams. She is also very corrupt. There's a whole backstory.
Oh my god!
There's a whole backstory. I did send you a video.
The backstory of our supporting cast is just wild.
It is wild. So I sent you a video. It involved a pelican, that bird, and a capybara. Now you have 4 options. It's up to you which one you choose. Are you ready?
Oh my god! What's about to happen here?
What was happening in the video? Was the pelican trying to murder the capybara, trying to massage the capybara, trying to eat bugs off of the capybara, or tailoring suits for the capybara, like measuring it with its beak?
What if there was a secret 5th option?
What is the secret 5th option?
That's what I'm trying to come up with.
Okay, well, you do have to come down on one of those 4, I feel like, unless you.
So maybe the pelican is a vampire.
Oh.
And he was trying to turn the capybara into a vampire so they could all take over. But the problem is the pelican does not have teeth, which makes him the worst vampire ever. So it's like, imagine, what is a vampire without teeth? Like, what do you even do then?
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the trying to eat him option, but it's like secret 5th option, which trying to eat him
and also failing it. Yes.
And trying to start a vampire apocalypse, which I feel like would be far deadlier than like a zombie apocalypse, because like zombies don't fly. Vampires can fly.
That is true.
Vampires can mind control,
Yep. And they're quick. And yeah, it would be far deadlier. Well,
yeah, and zombies can't like solve complex riddles, and vampires can.
Yes.
Like in Walking Dead, they have like string and like cans, like this will stop the walkers. Like you got a vampire problem, they'll just fly over it and be like, "You're dead." Blah.
Yeah, they can still use their brains.
Yeah. The only reason why we as a society are still alive is because that pelican does not have teeth.
Okay.
That would have started the vampire apocalypse right there. We are lucky.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. You believe the pelican is an insidious creature. So the backstory is that my former BFF from Earth 2, Shayna, and I are in this constant sort of battle about pelicans and capybara. So I decided to ask Twitter, and it was a tie between trying to murder capybara and tailoring suits for capybara, with one person voting for trying to eat bugs on the capybara. But you sort of sided with me, so I feel like that side won. So pelicans are as bad as I imagine them to be. Okay. Well, before we get into the reviews, also, we just have the Find Your Joy segment, which is Shag's Mac and Cheese, a Comfort and Joy. Now, we did, of course, talk about in the previous month, you had an anniversary coming up and you were taking some me time. In between that time and now, how have you been finding your joy?
So I won't get too much on the air. You know what happened off the air, but I will briefly say that one of the families I work with suffered a very big tragedy. So we've been dealing with that a lot the last few weeks and trying to find joy. And one of the things we did to find joy was I took the kids and the family to a smash room a few days ago, and that was a joyous thing for them. They were able to take their frustrations out by throwing pieces of glass against the thing, breaking plates, breaking printers. That was pretty joyous. And then they wanted to see Spider-Verse again. I said, yeah, let's see Spider-Verse again. And they've been like quoting all of like the memes and stuff from the movie. And I'm up to seeing it 5 times now.
Oh
so like, which is the most I've seen a movie in theaters in like years. Like I can't remember the last time I went to a movie in theaters 5 times. But it's that good. And then I'm about to do San Diego Comic-Con with Donovan. And of course Stella is always with us in our hearts. She stopped 2017 was her last San Diego with us. So but it's it's crazy. Oh, and I have to tell you something about a friend of ours at Comic-Con, off mic.
Okay.
Man, it's so you know, it's kind of joyous, you know, doing that again. And some joy. My Adventures with Superman. Have you seen it yet? First 3 episodes are on Adult Swim and formerly HBO Max, now Max. I don't like that new name because Max is too generic, because it's like, are you talking about the human or the streaming service?
Yeah.
But that show is very good. Has kind of an early 90s like anime vibe to it, and it's fun. It's a nice modernized take on Superman. I think you would enjoy it.
Okay. Sounds good. I was also the new editor of TBU had asked if I watched the new Batman film that had come out, and I said no, and he said that Barbara has an interesting characterization. So I'm hesitant when someone says it like that.
Batman film.
Yeah, the direct-to-video one.
Oh,
he said that she's Oracle or something, but whenever someone like presents it in that way, I get a little hesitant. I asked as like a villain joke, and he said no, but maybe I'll give it a go.
There's so many of these direct DVD movies.
Yeah, I can't remember the title.
There was the Doom that came to Gotham.
That might be what it was. Yeah.
But I don't even remember Barbara being in that one. It was like Cassandra was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen Spider-Man once. I want to see it again, but my time is very limited. So I'm definitely going to buy it on DVD. So I think I'll just wait. And then any other film that I really want to see in theaters, I kind of save space for that. Like yesterday, I went to see Mission Impossible. I was very excited about it, and I enjoyed it. But they killed off my favorite character, so I'm not very happy about that. Yes.
Does Tom Cruise die?
I'm not going to spoil who died. Just know that somebody does.
Thanks for the spoiler.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for the spoiler. I'm super excited. Next week, as of this recording, the FIFA Women's World Cup begins in Australia. Of course, with Australia and them being so far ahead, there are going to be some really wacky times I'll be up watching things. But definitely rooting for USA and England would be my 2 teams. And I'm wearing a soccer kit, Krieger. But she wasn't called up, but she's my favorite player. So I think that's primarily it. And then enjoying all the young adult literature that I am reading for my class, which I'll probably be talking about in the literature recommendation. Okay, are you ready to get into it?
Let's get down to business.
Yes. Okay, so we are in Act
Black Mass.
Yes, good thing I know, because otherwise it would have been a spoiler. But this is Act 2, called Tides, as a refresh from Act 1. personally, I didn't think it was too bad because I know people have been telling me it's kind of bad. And I guess the big reveal is that Steph was behind this situation because she was trying to help, but she didn't invite, or she did invite everyone, but Matches Malone didn't show up because she didn't know that Matches Malone and Batman were the same person. So that's kind of like the big thing. So I will be doing the synopses and then we'll talk about it. Some of these issues I honestly have nothing to say, but I'm sure Josh will have some insider information. And then of course, towards the end, I'll have a lot of stuff to say about some particular story points that happened. Thanks to DC Wikia for the synopses. Some of them are long, but at least it gives you an idea. All of these issues came out, or the cover date, November 2004. So we're going to get started. So first up, part 1, Undertow, Detective Comics 798. Writer Anderson Gabrick, penciler Pete Woods, inker Cam Smith, colorist Jason Wright. The news about the collapse of Gotham since the gang war began are all over the media, and the most shocking among them is the first ever video capture of Batman carrying the unconscious body of Darla Akista, daughter of mob leader Henry Akista. Soon after the shooting of Lewis Memorial High School, Darla died from the bullet wound in her shoulder, and the Akista family decided to pay back all the gangs responsible for her death. Meanwhile, several concerned citizens of Gotham have gathered at the city hall, hoping to get an answer from the authorities about the measures to stop the violence. Oracle keeps a close eye on the situation, and she notices that Tim Drake is among the crowd. Tim feels guilty for being inactive when he could be helping Batman to control the situation, and when he listens to Arturo Rodriguez talking about his loss of faith in Batman, Tim feels even worse. Meanwhile, Oracle contacts Batman and reports the current situation on every hotspot. Oracle also tells him that she feels overwhelmed by the load of work she has to do. And still, she would like to be more active. She is also concerned that Batman might be mad at her for breaking up with Nightwing. Good Lord, who cares? Because he sent Black Canary and Huntress on a mission far away, or simply because what happened with Stephanie Brown. Batman tells her that none of that matters and that he doesn't want to call Stephanie to help them since he doesn't want to put her in danger. Oracle tells him that without her help, they are still in need of people, and Batman is currently going to meet someone who might help with that trouble. Commissioner Akins is waiting at the rooftop of the GCPD headquarters, and Batman joins him to discuss the situation. Batman wants to control the entire police department for 8 hours in order to get the situation under control, but Akins refuses since he has lost trust in Batman after the events at the high school, and also because, well, that's not the right thing to do. Meanwhile, on the streets, the violence keeps uprising, and Renee Montoya does her best to stop Pistolera and Vicious, but she is injured in the shoulder by one of Vicious's daggers. At that moment, at Leslie's clinic, a group of police officers has arrived looking to apprehend some of the criminals under Leslie's care. Onyx, who has just recovered, escapes just in time and avoids being seen by the police. Tim Drake is struggling with a hard decision, and after considering his options, he makes a decision. Meanwhile, Alexandra Kosov meets with a mysterious person who has killed her bodyguards and offers her protection from the backlash that is about to come from everybody in Gotham against her and her gang. A few moments later, Batman arrives at Alexandra's apartment and notices a trail of blood still warm on the floor. Right after that, he hides after listening to strange sounds coming from outside. The door of the apartment is broken down and several armed thugs start shooting in every direction, but they stop when they realize that the place is empty. Batman takes a chance and drops on them, takes them out, and leaves one thug for questioning. Batman learns that the hit was ordered by Henry Akista, and he gets on the move, reporting the events to Oracle. Tim Drake finally arrives at Wayne Manor, where he is welcomed by Alfred, who is glad to see him, but said that he has decided to stop living a quote-unquote normal life. Tim retrieves his old outfit and climbing to one of Gotham's tallest buildings, Tim puts on his Robin costume, asking forgiveness for breaking his promise, but making the right decision. Whew, okay. So some notes for me. Batman admits to not treating Steph exactly fairly, which I did appreciate. But he still doesn't want her involved because she couldn't handle it, is what he says.
It's interesting that he admits that he doesn't treat her fairly, but he says it to Barbara and not to the person that he should actually be saying it to.
Still has Babs acting as operator, running all communication through BM, so no wonder she feels like she's getting worn out because she has to keep, like, she's the go-between, which is super frustrating. And then we'll see what happens later on in the betrayal issue.
Betrayal.
Tim's struggle and then finally putting on the costume. Are you surprised that we don't see a conversation between him and his father, Jack? And do you think Jack would have understood? I mean, we do later get one, but kind of his like
yeah, I have notes about the conversation with Jack, but I'll get to those notes when we get to that issue. Sure. Honestly, in 2004, I was more surprised that this was not happening in an issue of Robin.
Mm,
Like, it felt like Tim becoming Robin again should have happened in an issue of Robin of the crossover. Like, that was kind of weird because if you're just reading Robin, which like, and skipping all the crossover stuff, like just one issue, he's in the school and he's like, oh no, my friend got shot. Then the next issue, he's Robin again.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, what happened in between?
yeah, I thought that was weird. And there was times where like in Tim's title during crossovers where like stuff that I thought should happen in his title would happen in other titles. Like in Cataclysm, there was a period like years before this, there was a period where Tim was separated from his father for a while because he had run away from home. And when he finally reunites with his father and hugs him, it's an issue of Nightwing during Cataclysm. And I'm like, oh, this should have been Tim's title. But that's just how I feel crossovers should work.
Yeah, yeah. I would.
Um,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You had mentioned the Barbara and Batman conversation. Were you
Mm.
going back to that, or were you just setting up
Well, I was just going to say, in
everything?
regards to having a conversation between Tim and his father, I would have liked to have had it happen before he put on the suit. Because once he puts on the suit, which of course we'll talk about, then he's really got to explain everything. But I wish he could have been there to sort of process everything with his father beforehand and then put it on, because that just feels more of the Tim Drake sort of way. And I think Jack would have understood, which he ultimately does at the end. But I
Uh-huh.
think having that conversation would have been better, because yeah, now he just feels really guilt ridden that he's betrayed his promise to his
It,
father.
the other thing too is this school shooting was on all of the news stations.
Yeah,
So like Jack and Dana would have seen it and been like,
true.
"Oh, that's Tim's school. Is he so like he should be
Yeah,
in contact with his father at this point, like because I don't know, you find out your kid is in a school shooting, like your instinct is like, let's talk, let's go to him, let's
right.
comfort him. Is he okay?
Yeah.
And the implication is kind of that they don't talk until Tim shows up in the Robin costume. um
Mm,
I think Tim is avoiding talking to Jack until the last moment possible because he's ashamed of what he's doing.
yeah. Yeah, gotcha. You were going to say something about that.
Yeah, no, the conversation because like Batman, his thing is let's put all emotions aside and get everyone to run efficiently. But I think that like because Barbara's emotional needs are not being tended to, she's not going to run as efficiently. And like this conversation with Batman is like a cry for help. Like it's like, hey, are you mad at me? Like what's going on? Blah blah blah. This would be a moment where like Batman should have a personal talk with her just to kind of like so that stuff is off of her mind and she could then for like operate better, but he's not. And yeah, there's a lot of Batman not making the right decisions for people and ignoring cries for help with his friends.
Yeah. I do call him a jerk, but I feel like he's learned from this sort of previous situation happening before. So I also believe that it might be a mischaracterization to a certain extent.
Or like most people that learn things, they unlearn them.
That is true. He needs to be
like I
reminded.
mean this
Yeah.
this whole thing is like Stephanie's like it's all my fault, but like who wrote the war games?
Yeah. No, yeah. That is true.
Batman,
Yeah. That's true.
Did you have anything to say about the Commissioner Atkins scene?
Yes. Do you feel like Batman's request for 20 for I guess 8 hours is a reasonable request? Do you think that it would have actually done anything if Batman had control of his force? And in the end, he kind of takes over, but we haven't gotten to that yet. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about this request?
So, was this a reasonable request? In the words of the great philosopher Francis Jean Jacques, hell no. Like
Give me
the
your men for 8 hours. Oh my
the
god.
balls on this man to
How
like
does
look
he walk with them?
the police commissioner in the face and say like give me like a boy like I'm with that. I'm with Atkins on this. Like, who do you think you are? Like, this isn't the Justice League and the Teen Titans or whatever. Like, this is the police. Like, you're not a cop.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. and again, it's him thinking he knows what's best for everyone, but like, everything in this war games is happening right under his nose. He doesn't realize it's his war games until like halfway through Act Two. He doesn't realize that like one of his men has been replaced by like a supervillain until like way too late. He doesn't realize like that, Oracle, Nightwing, and Robin are all like having like anxiety about everything. And if he realizes that he's not doing anything about it, now he wants to manage a whole police force. Like, this was an interesting time period because like with Gordon, like gone, like we get like a new dynamic with a new commissioner where they're less familiar with each other, and that creates some drama. So I enjoyed that part of it because like comics kind of have this reflex where if you pull too far away from the traditional status quo, it'll snap back. And then like, of course, a few years from now, we had Gordon back as the police commissioner, and you had that traditional dynamic back. But I like the periods where like we have something new because it gives us an opportunity for different dynamics like this.
Any other, I mean, I agree with you there. I don't know how much it would have accomplished, because if he's not able to manage his own team well and they know him intimately, then what's it going to be like with a bunch of people that he's not really worked with? I feel like it could have been a dangerous situation on both sides.
Well, it's imagine you're a cop and like you're told we're taking orders from Batman for the next day out. Like, what in the world? This isn't no man's land.
Right. Yeah. Any other thoughts on part one?
Nosotros.
Okay. Part two, philosophical differences. This was Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 183. Writer A.J. Lieberman, penciler Brad Walker, inker Troy Nixie, and colorist Javier Rodriguez. And I will say that this is my favorite of Act 2 art. I thought that this was amazing art in this particular issue. Sorry, I don't have a digital copy. I just have my Kindle. Batman comes to the conclusion that in order to find the responsible party behind the gang war, he must use another identity different than Batman, and that's how Matches Malone, irony, starts looking for answers in the streets of Gotham. Meanwhile, Catwoman takes Spoiler to the East End and tells her the reason why the plan she tried to implement didn't work is because Matches Malone is in fact Batman. Spoiler tries to run away and fix her mistake, but Catwoman stops her and both start to fight each other, of course, because that's a useful way to, of our time. In the end, Catwoman defeats Spoiler, but prevents her from making more mistakes. Elsewhere, James Gordon decides that he should be helping the city in any way he can, and he goes to the GCPD headquarters to talk to Commissioner Akins, who tells Gordon about Batman's intentions of taking control of the entire GCPD. Gordon gives Akins some advice and agrees with his decision of not leaving it all to Batman. Catwoman goes to Holly and Karen's apartment along with Spoiler, and she tells Holly to watch Spoiler closely and not let her go anywhere, which of course doesn't work out. Meanwhile, Catwoman goes out, but before leaving, Spoiler makes her promise that she wouldn't tell Batman the truth. After a long night of Matches Malone questioning all kinds of thugs and people with criminal connections, Batman thinks that the responsible party for the gang war is Diego Escobedo, current leader of the Escobedo cartel. He contacts Oracle and lets her know about his worries about their need for people, and at that moment Robin joins Batman, much to the Dark Knight's surprise. Batman contacts all the members of the Bat family and tells them to start acting before the police curfew starts. Batman and Robin start patrolling the city, and Batman reveals that the person behind it all developed a plan without flaws, and that he would make that person pay when it's all over. So look in the mirror there, sir. In the meantime, Catwoman goes to the Tompkins clinic, where she reveals the truth about Spoiler's mistake to Leslie Tompkins and asks her to pass on the information to Batman, so as a workaround to her promise, in order to get the situation under control. Batman goes to James Gordon's house and asks him to intercede on his behalf with Akins, but Gordon refuses since he believes that Akins is doing the right thing, and Batman would cross the line by taking the law into his own hands. At dawn in the North End, the house of Diego Escobedo has been attacked, and all of his bodyguards and henchmen are dead. Diego has been taken to the basement of his home and is tied to a chair, which in turn is tied to a post. The aggressor has covered Diego's mouth with duct tape and is about to torture him using a welder gun until he reveals all the information he wants. Okay. So let's talk about the appearance of Jim Gordon, his conversation with Akins, and then his conversation with the Batman, which I felt was very reminiscent of that garden conversation. My favorite issue, in fact, of No Man's Land. That was almost completely silent. Like they just kind of stare at each other and because they feel sad. Yeah. What are your thoughts on these two conversations, and I guess Jim in general in this particular issue?
It was some of the strongest stuff of Act Two. I like, and like I said, there's nuance, and even among what I like about the Batman and Gordon relationship, like during this period, is that it wasn't all like Jim Gordon just being on his side, saying like lighting the bat signal and saying, "Oh, the Riddler, sent us this note. What do you think of it?" Like there is some general tension there, and I like Gordon saying, "No, I agree with Atkins," and like if you would have said that to me, like I would have taken you in. I like the conversation with Gordon and Atkins where he's like, I almost took him in right then and there. And Gordon said, I had that thought so many times during like the first year. Um, it was a very interesting conversation. Who wrote this issue again?
AJ Lieberman, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That was good.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget because we very much romanticize this relationship between Batman and Jim. And it is a very good, strong relationship. But also, you have to think about what Jim goes through as someone who is on that side of the law, and that he probably struggles daily with helping out Batman, even though Batman might be his closest friend. And so to have that verbalized, for him to verbalize it rather than internalizing it and being on his own, to somebody else and like agreeing with him, and then also to verbalize it to Batman and also say like, yeah, you put me in some tricky positions, and also I think you really overstepped by asking this particular thing. I think is good for both Jim as well as Batman needs to check his entitlement, I think, because he feels like he should be able to do
there is a lot of Bat entitlement. Yeah. He's like, whew. I mean, it's kind of fitting that like Brother Eye is like, a year or two away at this point because like this guy, like, Tower of Babel didn't teach him a lesson. Like
yeah. The Batman and Robin reunion, I didn't talk about in the synopsis there, but it is both a comedic as well as a sad scene because like they're there and it's just like no one's saying anything, and I think Babs is saying like, this is the time where you would say something, and there's nothing there. So was it realistic that there is this lack of communication, conversation, and like, let's work through what had gone down and feel like, yeah, that's just who Batman is. But then later Robin, talks tonight. I guess it's the next issue. He wants to kind of sort through those feelings, but nothing happens. What do you think about this silence?
Rereading this, I had to remember the context of what came before. I was like, Batman and Tim have been emotional with each other in the past. Like I was like even thinking of like when Tim's mom died and like Batman was like sitting, by the bed with Tim and like helping him cry. I'm like, these are men that are capable of emotion. Then I'm like, oh wait, yeah, like Tim's mad because Batman hired his like ex-girlfriend to be Robin and stuff like that. But why is like Batman mad at Tim? He like, if it's because he quits, like that's kind of petty because like his dad legit found out, and which like even if you delve into that, it just raises a whole like ethical question of like, what were we doing for all these years letting Tim be Robin behind Jack Drake's back? Like, was that really something that was ethical? So, but at the same time, like these are imperfect characters that don't always do the right thing, and that's what makes it interesting. So, was it realistic that they would be silent in the scene? Yes, it's not their best behavior, but under the circumstances, totally.
Well, it's interesting, and I will say more so than Batman hiring Steph, I think Tim is also very upset that Batman told Steph his secret identity. I think that's kind of the start of their downfall in their relationship.
Yeah, I feel like they had moved past that at this point because that had been like a little longer ago. Okay. But yeah, like almost. What issue of Robin was it? Are we on now?
Oh, are we on?
In War Games, yeah. What's the issue number?
130.
130. Yeah, so it had been like a few years like of publishing comics at that point, like at least maybe like around, because I feel like Batman told her around issue 80 something and we're in issue like 130 something. So I think that they're kind of past that.
I disagree. I just think that's a big betrayal. So I'm just gonna say I disagree with you. We'll let Donovan toss the dice and say which one he agree with. He agrees with. Yeah, I do somewhat agree with you. I mean, the situation is awkward, and maybe it's not the time to have an in-depth conversation. But Batman did try to have a conversation with Nightwing, and Nightwing was like not ready to have it because he does say like, "Are you okay?" So I'm like, why is he carving out space for Nightwing but not for Tim? So that's the only thing that
I think because Nightwing of all of them is like the one that's having the hardest time keeping it together.
Oh yeah, on the edge of a breakdown. Yeah.
I mean, edge of a breakdown. He fell off that edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Like
trying to
we
climb
are,
back up.
we are in full blown breakdown.
Yeah. Catwoman telling spoiler about Matches Malone. Do you think that was the right move for her?
Yes.
Okay.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Well,
Like
what was she thinking that was going to accomplish? She had to have known that this was going to be bad. It was going to break her back.
because this is a woman that is carrying all of this on her shoulders.
Which woman?
Stephanie.
Okay.
Stephanie is carrying all this on her shoulders. This is all my fault. This is all my fault.
I see.
And Selena has some information that doesn't completely absolve Stephanie of responsibility, but it like, okay, this isn't 100% your fault. Like there is more. Like,
Okay.
and in that situation, Stephanie deserves to know the truth. And the city on fire, city on. I showed the kids that scene, like uh from Sweeney Todd on like YouTube. For context, when I say the kids I'm talking about are teenagers. In this case, YouTube and BTO listeners. Yeah. These are the teenagers. I didn't show a 5-year-old Sweeney Todd. Like, oh, I want the pies. But anyway, the city's on fire.
I want the pies. I'm seeing that in October on
Oh,
Broadway. Yeah, that'll be an interesting experience.
oh, we should go. Anyway, so the city's on fire and like people are dying, so this isn't the time to like hold things in. Like
Okay.
I think like secrets and decorum goes out the window there.
Okay. So her intention was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, like Stephanie is falling apart and she thinks this is all her fault, and Selena has information. Well, it's only 70% your fault, or
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would say 70%. That's actually this would be an interesting question for listeners. Like, is this more Bruce's fault or more Stephanie's fault?
I guess we should say, let's try to remember that question, especially for, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I could do a Twitter poll, but we should also revisit that, I guess, at the end of Act 3.
Yeah. I guess I'm
going
to say more Bruce's fault, though, because he legitimately, like, wrote the War Games.
Yeah. I would lean towards that, but no one's going to trust me because I'm objective. I always say, like,
yeah.
the Batgirl thing, but I would, yeah. I mean, she's a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was trying to do stuff for the good, and it just didn't work out for her. So, yeah. Catwoman telling Leslie, thoughts on that?
I think that this was, like I said, city on fire, people dying. If you have information that can stop it from happening, which is like, hey, these are Batman's war games, he might have a way to stop them. She can't say, oh, these are Batman's war games without like there being a follow-up question, which is, wait, how did this happen or whatever. So there's no time for distractions. You have to cut to the chase. Lives are on the line. So I agree with Selena telling Leslie. I think she should have directly told Batman because, just take it directly to the source and save time. And also telling Leslie just kind of like set Leslie off on a path that is very weird. Like they're kind of And I know that you've been told that there's like a bad thing that happens with Leslie Tompkins in
Yeah.
this arc, which that actually happens in the sequel, kind of. Well, like it happens off panel and during War Games, and you find out about it during not War Crimes. Maybe it's War Crimes. There's War Drums, War Games, War Crimes. So I think it happened. I think you find out about it in War Crimes, but then it's retconned years
Okay.
later. So like it's the whole Leslie thing's a mess, and I have to speak in riddles because like you don't
Right,
have
I
the
don't know
full
yet. Yeah.
picture yet. But this
Well, can you
does.
tell me if do you think she would have done what she does that I don't know about if this hadn't happened? If Catwoman hadn't told her?
Good question, because what Catwoman told her, like, this was my first time rereading this since 2004, and in rereading this with the full picture of like war crimes and everything that came afterwards, like I actually see that like, oh, she's doing this like right after Catwoman had this conversation with her. That's weird. This means that she was planning this at this point in the arc. I thought that she did this spur of the moment in Act 3, but nope. She had this plan during Act 2 after the Selena thing. So maybe not. I think she would have done it regardless, because if it just took Selena telling her, I feel like Selena telling her didn't just get her from 0 to 10. Like she was already on like an 8.5 or 9. And then Selena telling her is what pushed her to the 10.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how Catwoman, I guess, holds on to this particular honorable quality at this point in time where desperate situations, as you're saying, like, so she doesn't want to break a promise, so she does a workaround of the promise. And you kind of think, like, maybe you just have to break your promise in this sort of
She's
situation
worked
and go
with the
straight.
Joker, and she's like, I gotta be honorable.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, I don't know.
she's a
Yeah, it's
thief.
interesting of Selena.
She's a thief. She's like she's faked her own death, and she's like, I gotta be on. Although, in fairness, I'm saying all this. This is like Ed Brubaker, Catwoman, like protector of the East End. Like she's like legitimately like a much more positive person now.
Yeah. Is it realistic? So I'll ask this now, even though it was sort of bandied about,
Ooh.
you had already mentioned it, that Batman hasn't connected that it is his plan. He does later in this act,
Right.
but how is he like,
Um.
oh, this is a really calculated plan, but he doesn't realize it's his
Yeah.
plan.
I'm thinking, and the thing is, like, in the big picture of the entire city and everything happening, sometimes it's hard to see like a big picture as opposed to like if this was like a small contained thing, like a single warehouse fire where something was happening. It's like you're looking very, very close. Like it's like you painting a picture. Until you see the whole picture, you won't recognize that that's your painting if you're just looking at like one tree and the overall like painting of like the park.
Yeah.
So I kind of believe it, especially with like, the book is showing that everyone is just overworked and at their wits' end and completely like stressed out, and nobody's operating with their complete mental capacities.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just, yeah, it's almost laughable or absurd because you're reading this and he's talking about himself, but doesn't know that he's talking about himself, and you're just like, oh my gosh, when are you
Oh,
gonna figure
whoever
this
made this
out? It's
plan
driving me
sounds like a
crazy.
really awesome person.
I know, yeah,
Or
it's
he's
kind of nuts.
wow, whoever made this plan is like emotionally cut off and needs to like, needs to be a better friend to his
Yeah,
friends and stuff like that. It's like, oh, it looks like this was a plan made by a hypocrite, like, and a
yeah,
betrayer.
the big H word, yeah.
So the people that are listening to this in audio and not on YouTube, Stella just gymmed the camera. She like when I said like it needs to be a less of a hypocrite to the French. Stella like tilted her head and like cocked her eye. She gymmed the camera, which is like code for like she did a John Krasinski from The Office face, like
I had no idea, but yeah, I suppose I did.
which there's a DC connection to that now because John Krasinski. I said Office Space. I meant The Office, but like John Krasinski on The Office, co-starred with Jenna Fisher, and Jenna Fisher's first husband, James Gunn, is now president of DC Studios, or co-president with Peter
Jenna
Safran.
Fisher was married to James Gunn. That's interesting.
They were married in the early 2000s, and they're still like best friends. Like,
I'm glad.
and not just like Hollywood, like we pretend to be best friends. Sure. Like, they like legitimately like support each other's work and like, you know, hang out together at parties sometimes.
I'm glad to hear. I randomly found out that Katy Perry is very close with Orlando Bloom's first wife. I'm like, oh, this is great. I love that.
Oh,
yeah.
That's pleasant.
It is very pleasant, yeah.
Barbara and Catalina, you can make it work.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't want it to work. I don't want it to work. Any other?
but Barbara and Corey, they could be best friends. That's fine.
I mean, was it Teen Titans?
Oh my God. I guess this has nothing to do with war games, but like, if Barbara was best friends with one of Dick's exes, who would it be?
One of Dick's exes?
Yeah.
Yancey.
Clancy?
Clancy. Most reasonable.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I feel like maybe Helena, because like they actually work together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's a cheat though, don't you think?
Yeah, that is a cheat. Yeah. Okay, no Birds of Prey. I really think that Barbara and Corey would find that they have a lot in common if they hung out more.
Okay. Whatever you say, man. Any other comments?
You say. Oh man.
Any other comments?
You don't think
looking for a new co-host for Act 3.
Oh.
Looking for a new co-host. Okay. Any other comments on part 2?
No.
Okay. Part 3, clarification. I think there was a scarification in Act 1. Nightwing 97. Writer Devin Grayson, penciler Mike Lilly, inker Andy Owens, colorist Gregory Wright. Nightwing, whose guilty conscience about his part in the murder of Blockbuster still haunts him, patrols Gotham City right after the police curfew begins. He meets Batman, and together they go to Tarantula's turf to make sure that she has her gang under control. Batman leaves him alone, and Tarantula expresses her comfort working so close to Nightwing, making me sick. At that moment, a mysterious person attacks a member of the Lucky Hand Triad and tortures him for information. At the Hill, Orpheus is gathering his gang and trying to establish a plan of action during that curfew, and Onyx joins them after her escape from the Tompkins Clinic. There's a hug. Oh! Orpheus is glad to see her, and they set their plan in motion. This is tragic now that we know what happens. Oracle and Batman discuss Tarantula's presence in Gotham due to her reputation after killing a police officer, but Batman insists that she is helping the city, and he hangs up the line on Oracle, my gosh, making her more frustrated than she already is with the whole situation. At that moment, the mysterious man has captured and is torturing another crime boss for information. Robin and Nightwing crash the same nightclub at the same time. They start taking down the thugs inside, and while they do it, Robin wants Nightwing's opinion. Nightwing is paralyzed in fear, a PTSD attack, basically, knowing that he has no moral responsibility to give him advice. One of the thugs prepares a Molotov bomb and throws it at Robin, who saves some of the girls of the nightclub using his insulated cape. However, Nightwing starts seeing visions about the murder scene of Blockbuster, and he actually sees the body of Roland Desmond in the fire. Nightwing collapses and starts crying in the middle of the fire until Robin approaches him, gives him a rebreather, and they get out of the burning building. Robin is shocked after watching Nightwing in that state, and he tells Nightwing that all he wanted to know is if Batman was still mad at him for leaving the role of Robin, but instead he just leaves to make sure his father is safe. Nightwing softly mutters that Batman is not mad at him, but Robin has already left, so that doesn't really help. At the East End, at Holly and Karen's apartment, they listen to the news on the radio while they watch over Spoiler. However, when they need to open some bottles, they ask Spoiler to bring the bottle opener on the kitchen. Spoiler looks for it and finds a big box of kitchen matches, making her feel guilt and overwhelmed because of it. And she leaves the apartment, much to Holly's concern. I guess she's connecting the matches with Matches Malone. Meanwhile, at the Tompkins Clinic, Leslie Tompkins is looking at the Gotham City adoption database until she is interrupted by one of the nurses. I have no idea what that detail is about. The ventriloquist, is that, I'll find out later. The ventriloquist and Scarface prepare the gang for an assault on Gotham, and by the time most of the thugs have left the place, he is attacked by the mysterious person who has been attacking other crime bosses, and after the coward henchman, Mr. Fun, runs away, that's a surprising thing to call him a coward. The mysterious attacker tells Scarface that he's now working for him. Nightwing goes to Chinatown and stops a gang battle before calling to Tarantula to make sure that she's doing fine. Tarantula has no worries, but Nightwing tells her to have her flashlight ready just before the lights on the entire city go off, following Batman's prediction. At the Iceberg Lounge, Penguin lights some candles and reveals that he is taking control over the electric power of Gotham City. Quote from Tarantula: "I can't wait to meet your ex." I don't know what sort of tone that she was using.
I read it as playful, but
I rolled my eyes at it. I was like, you did meet her. Do you remember creeping over her in, no, I guess it was Nightwing. She might have crossed over in Birds of Prey.
They broke up because
of her. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They've met. This is
I know. Some people don't do the research. How does seriously, if I gotta call 911, I won't be happy. How does Babs think Blockbuster's death? Okay, how does Barbara think that Blockbuster's death is suspicious, but Batman either doesn't or hasn't brought it up?
Well, I guess I can. I mean, do you want me to give you a spoiler for something that happens down the line that explains this question?
Is it in War Games?
No.
Oh, then sure, yeah.
This happens in Infinite Crisis.
Didn't we talk about that last time? That people knew, like Cass and Tim knew, and Batman may have known.
Okay, yeah. So like when Nightwing tells Batman, he's like, "Of course I knew." So like maybe Batman. I mean, which happens in like literally Infinite Crisis. Like, you know, like Nightwing's like, "Oh, I killed Blockbuster." Batman's like, "Yeah." So like I knew that. Well, so Batman probably finds it suspicious, but he's just not addressing. He's like, "Oh, Dick will tell me when it's time."
So it's just desperate situation. He needs all hands on deck, and so he's going to ignore this for the time being.
Or maybe not ignore it, but like, I haven't read the Nightwing issue where like they have the conversation about it in years, but I think that Batman basically says like, "I knew, and I was waiting for you to like be able to tell me or something." But like, Batman's also like kind of aggressively a jerk about it in that conversation. Like he's not comforting. Like he's like, "Yeah, stop feeling sorry for yourself. We gotta like fight Anti-Monitor and like Superboy Prime or whatever."
Yeah. Oh, it's so long since I read that story.
But yeah, that whole conversation with Oracle, because Oracle is not wrong with the point she's making. It's like, yeah, this is a legit criminal, like blah blah blah. I do think that her whole like Dick is protecting her because he's sleeping with her is like, wow, you do not have a high opinion of your ex-boyfriend at all.
Yeah, and the fact that she says quote unquote slept together, which I guess not many people, either the writing is not connecting or saying that it was an assault / rape, or it's like everyone thinks that it was.
It's
in universe.
It's the writing. It's just like the writing does not treat it as a sexual assault.
Yeah.
Even though like that's what it was. And as we covered that a lot last episode, like Devin Grayson apologized, but there is a disconnect and it hurts the story. It's also, when did everyone find out that Dick and Catalina were sleeping together?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess when he was gallivanting with her and he almost got married.
But how does Oracle know? Well, she's Oracle.
Yeah, I can only guess.
She knows. She's like, why is there a marriage license taken out for Dick Grayson?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Then she sees like Catalina Flores. She's like, hell no.
I do appreciate the fact that Dick has PTSD. I think that it's just an interesting development, and I think it makes sense for his character to see how much that particular thing, his inaction, has affected him. And per usual, PTSD just flares up at very inopportune moments, as it does here.
Yeah, and Tim kind of, I don't know, like, I don't blame Tim for this because he's a 14-year-old. Well, no, he's not 14 at this point. He's more like 16, or whatever. But like, Tim is a child, so like that's like too much for him to handle. Like, when your like mentor, like big brother or parental figure is falling apart, like, and you're a child, like you don't know what to do, but like, man, this is not a time to leave Dick alone and have him in a war games situation, maybe. Because if he freezes up, people can get hurt and everything. It's if you're a Nightwing reader during this period, it's really hard for you because you have years of Dick like desperately needing to deal with his issues and him not dealing with them and like having the conversations that he needs to.
Yeah.
Like this blockbuster thing like takes over the book through Infinite Crisis.
Wow. It is interesting. I find it very realistic though, where, you know, we each have our own problems, and say like something really bad happens to you or you had a bad day and you want to talk to someone, and then you realize, well, they're having an even worse day. So I don't think I'm going to burden them even further with it. And that was what happened here, because Tim was worried. He wanted his advice, and he's like, well, Dick's got his own stuff to work through, so I'm going to just move on and leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got his own title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, before too, this thing with Leslie Tompkins looking at adoption records, I was like, oh, whatever she's planning, which has been retconned that she didn't actually plan this, but whatever, like, and the original intent of the story of what Leslie does, she had the plan for doing it at this point of the story, which is really weird.
Okay.
Barbara is not in War Crimes, but I hope that you read War Crimes anyway. It's
Because
a lot
Dapper.
short. It's a lot shorter than this. I feel like it was only like 4 or 5 parts, but I feel like you should read it
Parts
anyway
or
because
acts?
parts.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my God, no.
It's like I
Well,
can't
War
put that
Crime.
down. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot shorter than this.
Okay.
I think it would be like a small trade, from what I recall, but it adds a lot of context to like what happened in War Games, and it reveals like what Leslie was doing with those adoption records.
Okay. Yeah. It seemed, I mean, I didn't understand what was going on. Her coworker didn't. So I guess it's a Chekhov's gun, but we haven't gotten back to it yet.
Chekhov's gun being cocked, as Gerard Delator would say. Like,
Okay.
would you have a theory?
No, I honestly don't know. I don't have anything. I assume it has something to do with Stephanie, but that's all I. Oh, actually, wait. Didn't Stephanie have a kid?
She did have a kid.
Oh God, this is gonna get really
A
bad.
lot of people forget that she had a kid, but like she had a kid.
Oh no, that's really bad. If Leslie's doing something like bait, then using Stephanie. Wait, if Leslie's using Stephanie's child as bait, I think not. That seems really bad. Okay, Tim. Yeah, Tim's a kid, right? He's worried that Batman's angry. Are you upset? I feel like
Nobody is talking, and it's
yeah,
affecting
no.
their War Games.
I know, but it's just like, isn't that so like high school? It's like, well, sometimes we forget that he is a child. But he also has the right to be upset. I would almost say the better right. So that's interesting that he should just give Batman a silent treatment. Do you feel like that scene in the massage room is necessary? I was really thrown off by got all this violence, and then all of a sudden we have half naked women running around in that scene.
It was framed very weirdly because like there was like a part where like everyone's like whoa whoa whoa, and I think like Tim's like whoa when he like sees like the boobies or something. It's
Yeah.
like and and of course like there was a Gotham Chronicle callback because we actually had tassels on the tatas.
Oh,
That was one of Stella's uh Gotham Chronicle lines. She says
claim to fame.
yeah, she said at least there was tassels on the tatas. And of course memories of LA as well. Are you looking up the page?
Yeah, I was gonna see if I could find it.
Yeah, I feel like they did like a reaction shot of like Tim, like whoa, like, and it's like okay, I know he's a teenage boy, but like
I know there really are tests. Oh yeah, because he's like, oh, this is gonna be hard. I don't know if the light and everything, but yeah, he's like looking right at the top. I mean,
yeah, that was framed very very strangely.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A day after he saw his like I don't know if I'd call Darla his girlfriend, but they were dating. Like a day after he saw his like love interest like shot down, he's staring at tassels on tatas.
And it might just be art wise because Holly, man, you can't really see it, but Holly's like bent over and it's like trying to look down in the fridge. So I guess maybe it's just artistic.
We're recapturing the Jim Ballant day of Catwoman.
Yeah. Even though the synopsis said that Mr. Fun is a coward, I did find it interesting because I disagree with that. But it was just interesting that the mystery antagonist is someone that even Mr. Fun is afraid of, because Mr. Fun's a sociopath. So I didn't necessarily follow this blackout, and then I read the rest of the act, and then the lights come back on, and then I went back to this to write in this note that I just don't understand how Batman knows the blackout is going to happen, but he doesn't prevent it.
You could know something's happening without being able to prevent it.
And he knows he knows it because of this plan? Like it's something
Yeah, like it's like knowing like it's like listening to a song on the radio that you're vaguely familiar with, and you're like, oh, isn't the next line na 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 na, and then like you hear that, you're like, yeah, that's what I thought. Like,
yeah.
Except instead of a song, it's an assault on a city with a bunch of murders and blackouts and like death.
So you think at this moment he's starting to piece it together that it might be his plan? Okay.
Yeah, and I think he even says as much. He's like, I knew that the blackout would happen before it happened. Like,
okay.
And that's what's making him realize, like, he's seen the bigger picture, which is like, I wrote this.
But if he knew about did that mean that in his original plan he would have caused the blackout? Or he just knew that inevitably someone would steal the power?
Yeah, he knew that inevitably that would happen.
Okay.
He knew the domino effect, which was weird because like I was gonna talk about this when he realizes it's his plan, because like the book is kind of vague about like what the plan would have, because didn't the plan go wrong? Isn't that the whole point of why Stephanie's upset?
Yeah.
But here it's like, oh, this is all going according to the plan. But like, I thought the plan was for like Matches Malone to be at the meeting.
Yeah, I think it would have still been some sort of gang war. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. Like it's almost inconsistent. Because they're acting like it's all going according to plan, but then the whole point of Stephanie being upset is that the plan's going wrong. Because wouldn't Stephanie have seen, like, when she looked at the war games, like, oh, the city's, like, she would have known that the city was going to be on fire. She would have known that all that was going to happen. So it's weird, and the book doesn't really explain it. Unless there was a backup plan within the plan that failed.
Yeah. And I guess, like, step by step, Orpheus would have had to go to each of the gangs and somehow take over. And he was accumulating people. I guess that was somehow the plan. But I don't know that everyone was going to shoot each other at the initial meeting. I think maybe, I don't know. It is inconsistent because if the meeting went according to plan, there would have been some sort of alliance made. Then there would not have been a gang war and the power would not have gone out. So I guess this was like, if that doesn't happen and all the leaders get killed, then this will happen. Yeah, I don't know if he had.
I think it's a weakness in the overall storyline because, like, if maybe the writers had something in mind and they just didn't convey it well.
Yeah.
And that's actually caused some controversy at the time because, like, there's a line in one of these parts where Batman's like, I planned for everything and every death. And people were like, wait, Batman had a plan where people died? Like, Batman purposely orchestrated something where, like, there was going to be murders, which is weird because of the whole, like, I won't kill thing, but I will engineer a plan that will kill someone.
Secondhand murder is still murder. Yeah. Any other thoughts on part 3?
Let me look at me notes. Nope.
Okay. Then moving on to part 4, The Light at the End of the Tunnel. This came out in Batman Gotham Knights 157. Writer AJ Lieberman again, penciler Al Barrio Nuevo and Javier Pina, inker Francis Portela, and colorist Brad Anderson. After the blackout in Gotham City, Batman contacts Tarantula and tells her to deal with the man responsible for the blackout, Penguin. At that same moment, Spoiler runs across the rooftops of Gotham in order to reach Orpheus. Spoiler realizes that if Batman and Matches Miller are the same person, the key to end the gang war is Orpheus. However, the way to her goal is full of dangers, and she is soon attacked by a mysterious group of men. She barely makes it, but keeps looking for Orpheus. Batman talks to Oracle and he realizes that he has predicted mostly everything that would happen, and he understands that the reason for that is because, well, he planned it all. Good job finally figuring it out. Tarantula gets rid of the main security and she's attacked by Killer Croc, Suicide King, and Trickster. They are no match for her and she takes them down using some darts. Deadshot attacks Tarantula from behind, but she dodges Deadshot's attacks and disarms him. After a brief fight, Tarantula knocks Deadshot unconscious and takes his arm gun from him. Tarantula finds Penguin and tells him to get out of Gotham City once for all because everybody out there believes that he is the man behind the gang war. Penguin doesn't understand why they would think that, and Tarantula reveals that she has been spreading that word. Meanwhile, Batman contacts Alfred and asks him to check a specific file on the Bat computer and to send it to his mini computer. Batman reads the file and understands how he must proceed. However, Batman also asks Alfred for information about the last entry to that file, really the last person to look at that file. And Alfred tells him that it was Stephanie around the time when she was fired as Robin. Batman contacts the Bat family and he tells them that this gang war is a result of one of his contingency plans gone wrong. He explains that the plan was supposed to get all the criminal gangs in Gotham under their control by making Orpheus the leader. Batman tells him that the only way to get the whole situation under control is to find Orpheus and keep him alive. Spoiler keeps going on his way to find Orpheus and she is stalled by a street gang. Spoiler takes down the leader and tells the rest to take him to the East End Clinic. After that, she finally gets to the building where Orpheus is waiting for her. However, as soon as she tells Orpheus that he is a key member in the whole plan, a terrible, terrible thing happens. The mysterious attacker grabs him from behind and slits his throat open in front of Spoiler, after which the attacker questions the girl about the plan that she was talking about. Okay, so first of all, is it realistic that Batman trusts Tarantula so much and so quickly that he sends her, of all the people, to take out Penguin?
Huh. Because now I'm thinking, yeah, if Tarantula killed Blockbuster, like, she's not going to have any bones about killing Penguin.
Even though he says, no murder or whatever. But who's to say she's going to listen?
I mean, maybe he trusts her because Dick trusts her, and it's like, well, if she screws up, it's just a dead penguin,
Just a dead penguin.
Quack, quack.
Okay.
I figure that he thinks, like, if she's traveling with Nightwing and they're like having their fun, she's probably not doing murders right now, even if she did in the past. Like, he's and then how she's handling the situation with, like, that one gang and everything. Also, if, like, they send Nightwing or Robin or something, it's not going to be as threatening. But I think that this could be a calculated move on Batman's part because Catalina is not like a full-fledged member of the Bat family, so Penguin might be more afraid of her because he doesn't know, like, if she'll follow their code or not. And I think Catalina's saying, "Oh yeah, I told everyone that, like, you're responsible." I think that that's more scary to Penguin than, like, Batman saying it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I don't know who this girl is, and, like, she could kill me.
Yeah. She might have, she is willing to have more underhanded actions, I suppose.
Yeah.
Batman might. Yeah,
but yeah, it's a calculated risk because, like, she kills crime lords.
Yeah.
But Batman's like, if I have to risk Oswald's life, that is a risk I'm willing to take.
That's really bad to say. Okay. Just from Batman, it sounds very bad character. Out of everybody, I would have sent Cass. I think she's the most reliable with the intimidation. Dick is clearly mentally unstable at this point in time, and I don't think he was going to send Tim either, because let's just say that Tim is like fresh faced at this moment, and he's got to get back his feet back under him. I feel like Cass would have been the person, but we're going with Tarantula.
Dick would have, like, cried on the floor of the Iceberg Lounge, and Oswald would have been like, dude, like, I know that we're enemies, but like, do you want to talk about this? Like, like
Is Catalina this skilled of a fighter? Is that
in
also shocking to you?
2004, she was.
Okay. Okay.
And again, this was something that I alluded to last month, which was that fans who were very, very resentful of her and who were using the term Mary Sue like way too much for her. Like this was like stuff like, oh, now she's beating Deadshot from the Suicide Squad. Like the writers are trying to shove Catalina down our throats. And when you see her as a new character taking down people like Deadshot, yeah, it is hard to swallow, but we do have a history of like new male heroes also holding their own against like established like dangerous villains. So there's precedent.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's surprising that Catalina's this good, but like she has been fighting Nightwing and stuff like that and like living in Blue Haven, so
How does Stephanie know where to find Orpheus? Did you wonder about this?
the same way that Black Mask knows to find Orpheus, it's really weird. Like,
Okay.
like, how did they both like happen to be showing up there? Like, um, she had the waypoint on her map in the game, and I don't know. Maybe that was part of the war games or something like that, or maybe she like used her intel from the street. Or maybe the war games predicted where Orpheus would be. Maybe she just looked all over the city until she could find him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was his hideout, but it's just interesting that she would know where that was because she's not really a part of the family at this point. So unless that detail was in there that he would be holed up there throughout the entire thing. Yeah, I was confused about that. Why are people going after her? Is it just because she's a mask out in the open and it's chaos?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I wasn't sure because they're like everyone's firing missiles and stuff. And then final before the really big comment that of course made me very upset. But it took Batman long enough to figure out that it was his own plan. We've already talked about that. But do you feel like the Bat family reactions to him revealing that it is his plan, or are they, would you say, spot on?
I'd be a lot more pissed off, but they might be too tired and stressed to be pissed off. It's like, ooh, I have a lot of emotions right now, but I am overworked and very tired.
Yeah, let me see. There's a splash. Not technically a splash. It's a one pager of everybody. If I can find it.
You promised me no more Tower of Babels.
Oh, I know, seriously. Robin says, "War game!" Exclamation. He's not looking happy. Dick says, "That's what you do during the day." Cass says, "But why?" Batman ignores all that and says, "Oracle, where's Orpheus?" She's having trouble tracking him down. See, that's why I'm confused how Stephanie can track him. So if she doesn't know, yeah, I don't know.
Well, Barbara hasn't seen the war game. Stephanie has.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
If the war game says where Orpheus would be, but if Batman's like, I predict that if the city is on fire in this neighborhood and there's a power out, Orpheus, judging by his like 7 recent daily schedules, would probably go to this neighborhood
I see.
where Black Mask will teleport.
Robin asks why even plan for something like this. You actually thought you'd have to take over the city, and Batman says it was a precaution planned to anticipate any number of variables that might disrupt the city. I never intended to implement it. And Dick says, well, if you didn't do this, you did. And Batman says that's not important now. Do you think that's an unimportant detail who implemented this?
I think he doesn't want to throw Stephanie under the bus because he already
That's shocking.
feels. Well, he even says like, I may have treated her unfairly. So I think that there is a little bit of guilt there. So like, maybe I shouldn't throw her under the bus. He'll blame it on Alfred later or something. He'll be like, I'm not being serious when I say that. Like, that's not something that actually happens. Like, oh, it was Alfred. He did it.
Well, I think I guess it's, I don't know
Oof.
if I can.
Yeah.
But so the last page.
What a page.
I do have, I guess, oh, that's a bit better. Yeah. So Stephanie approaches Orpheus, and then, yeah, you just see all of a sudden the knife and.
Yeah,
This gray.
you
So
know,
I could not believe it. I was
this is
very
the
upset, but yes, yeah,
guy that was going to take over Gotham's gangs and unite them, a guy that can get
right.
snuck up on like that. And now, okay, that's the writing's fault. That's not me criticizing Orpheus as a character, but just like for Orpheus to go out by getting stuck up on behind and slashed in the throat, as opposed to like a heroic death or something like that, or um, and I tried not to completely spill the beans on this last month, but I kind of accidentally did. I was like, oh, maybe Orpheus will be fine. Um, yeah, this is like the Bat family doesn't really have a person of color in it, right now. And then they added Onyx and Orpheus, and like Onyx is kind of pushed to the side after this storyline, and Orpheus is like killed. And this isn't a spoiler because you already know about Stephanie dying, but like his death is completely overshadowed by Stephanie's death. Like War Games is known as the story where Stephanie dies, and at the end of War Games, everyone's reaction is like, "Oh, Stephanie's dead." It's not like rest in peace, Orpheus. So like he's taken out in a very disrespectful way in this title, and even then, like we don't really get a chance to like grieve him. And then what happens next with him, which we'll get to with Black Mask, is like even more insulting. And like there's things about the storyline that we and you even said that when you read Act One, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. You're getting now to Act Two and Act Three, like the reasons why people are upset about the storyline. And it's like stuff like this, like, um, in the year 2023, we have Luke Fox, we have his brother, Jace, we have Duke Thomas, we have, people of color in the Bat family. They don't always get all the recognition that they deserve, but we're doing better with it than we were here, where we had a single person of color in the Bat family, and they were always kind of like an outsider of the Bat family, like because they weren't a Robin or a Nightwing, and they're just killed like this.
Yeah.
In a way where like they have no agency in their death.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie when there's a black character in the cast.
Yeah.
You're like, inevitably that person's going to die. It's like, why can't we break that trope? I was very shocked that this happened. As I was reading, I probably gasped. I really like Orpheus. I don't know that I read Orpheus Rising and have seen his body, and I always have picked out, I'm like, oh, look, it's Orpheus. Definitely wasn't utilized, I think, as much as he should have. So I was super happy that he was like getting this huge role in this story, and to have this happen was just really disheartening. Um, and it's going to get way worse. Like, I mean, I would say racist. So it's not.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll talk about that once we get to it. But yeah, definitely insulting to the character, and I'm very sad about it. I was definitely shipping Onyx and Orpheus, when she got back and they hugged, and he's like, I'm just, I'm happy that, and she's like, sure. I'm like, oh, this is great. Maybe something positive will come out of it. And no. So thank you, DC Comics in 2004 for who's the editor in chief here? Dan DiDio, for ripping my heart out and stamping on it.
DC had a reputation around this time because like I mean, we got the stuff coming up with Stephanie, and at the same
Phil
time,
Levitz?
we had.
Who was it?
Say what?
Phil Levitz, or what's his name? Levitz, Paul Levitz.
Paul Levitz.
Who is it? Who's the EIC?
The Dio.
Oh, it is the Dio.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Dio now. Okay. Yeah, but DC had a reputation at this time because like not only was this stuff happening in War Games with like Stephanie and Orpheus, but you had Identity Crisis, which was their like mark your title, where like Sue Dibney's getting like raped and then killed while she's pregnant.
I think you are aware that I do like that story, but I recognize its problematic layers.
Yeah, no, it's a good story, but like there was a thing around this era of DC where like
stuff, yeah.
women are getting raped and tortured, and black men are getting like it's Do you think that the rape and identity crisis was excessive? I know this is a slight tangent.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I mean, I always question any sort of rape in media and whether it was necessary or not.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts on part 4?
Let me look at my notes.
Because I mean, immediately in part 5, I've got questions that relate to part 4, but because we're not there yet.
Yeah. Let's get to part. Yeah. Let's
Okay.
get there. We covered my notes.
Okay. We're going to take a break since this is a nice little halfway point. It's like a cliffhanger anyway, see what happens. But when we come back, we will finish War
Mhm.
Games and
Who killed
talk about
Orpheus?
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, the reveal, which I have an issue with.
What was
About
it?
that
Maggie?
reveal. What?
Was it Maggie Simpson?
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember she killed the mayor, right?
Mr. Burns.
Oh, she shot Mr. Burns. Yeah, that was
Yeah, she shot Mr. Burns.
but for whatever. But first, I don't care about those yellow people. That's just you and Donovan.
Cancel Stella. Cancel Stella.
They know I'm talking about The Simpsons. But first, Zeiss's Radio Hour featuring "Calm Down" by All Time Low. See you soon.